Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. A lot to get into today. Going to talk a lot of NFL, general NFL conversation going off of my 10 Thoughts column. I hope that you read, actually leading with Mike Tomlin in a case for him being the coach of the year. I don't know if you agree with me, disagree with me. It's Ravens week. We'll get into that matchup a little bit. The Penguins made a big trade. I guess not big. They didn't trade one of the big three, but Lars Eller is gone for a couple draft picks, and I don't quite understand why. Going to discuss that a little bit. First, want to remind you that we're brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people answer what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. All right, so the thesis of my 10 thoughts, this isn't the hockey beat anymore, column this week was Mike Tomlin in a case for coach of the year. I don't think it's crazy. Kind of what got me going, thinking down that path is the matchup with Washington and Dan Quinn and the job that he's done. I think Dan Quinn deserves to be in that conversation, certainly. I think Tomlin deserves to be in that conversation, certainly. And so I started thinking, who else? Who else is in that group? And honestly, it's probably overlooking the Detroit Lions and what Dan Campbell has done. I mean, they've been the best team in the NFL. I think you could probably argue that. The most complete team. The Ravens have scored the most points, but the Lions, they're right there. And if you trace back, I listed this stat, I read this week, Dan Campbell, 29-9 since Halloween of 2022. He probably should have won it last year. He didn't, went to Kevin Stefanski of the Browns. But sometimes you see those awards kind of have a residual component to them. I would have no problem with that. I would have no problem with Dan Quinn. I have, talked about the Washington football market and the Commanders and some of what I experienced, and that was an absolute mess down there, and he's cleaned it up along with several others, and if that was the route that occurred, fine. No problem there. Probably a sneaky one, the Arizona Cardinals. They've won 5 of 6, 4 in a row. James Conner is there, still doing his thing, looks really good. And so is Jonathan Gannon. I keep wanting to call him Jonathan Salant for some reason. I don't know why. Jonathan Gannon is absolutely another one that I would add into that mix. So we'll see how it plays out, right? Only partially through the season, but I don't think Mike Tomlin has a bad case, certainly. And you look at it and say, why? Why do you think Mike Tomlin could win Coach of the Year? Why do you think that this is a reasonable discussion to have? Well, isn't the Coach of the Year often about disproving expectations? Isn't it often about seeing what others couldn't see? And that can come in a variety of forms. Maybe it's in-game decisions. Maybe it's roster decisions. Maybe it's culture established. Maybe it's helping players rediscover or discover something that they didn't have. And I think Tomlin's done an excellent job of that. Think back to the preseason and what people thought the Steelers would be. And Mike Tomlin obviously didn't buy into that. People had them 7 wins, 8 wins, maybe 9 wins, something like that. I don't think that's how Tomlin thought. They could easily get to 11-6, 12-5. Easily. Look at their schedule from here out. Like, you would think you can get 2 wins against the Browns. You would think they find a way to, split with the Ravens. They've done pretty well against Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying that part of it is easy. Certainly not. But sitting here at 7-2, to get 4 more wins, I think that's a pretty reasonable ask, especially if two of them are going to come against the Browns. Decision-making, the Russell Wilson decision stands out for me. That's the one that is bold, unexpected, something you do when you have the pulse of your team. Ultimately, what a coach is entrusted to do, right? That was the best move for the Steelers. Some of us could not see it. Tomlin did. Probably unpopular in some circles. The George Pickens situation, I also outlined this. Tomlin obviously did a great job keeping things from spiraling out of control with Antonio Brown, right? The Pickens situation was not that. And I don't think it'll ever be that. But it was kind of awkward. It's kind of difficult. I remember that night against Dallas where, Tomlin saying it was snap management. I don't know about that excuse, but I'd rather be sitting here wondering about the excuse than seeing maybe how it blew up if it wasn't handled that way. And now all of a sudden he's handled that situation. Russell Wilson steps in and George Pickens has been excellent. Like that a lot. I wrote a column not too long ago about the number of new players the Steelers have had. This is draft, this is free agency, this is, random guys they've brought in who have contributed. And they've all been, they've all hopped on a moving train to steal one of Tomlin's lines. And it's been really, really good. Obviously, nobody more so than Russell Wilson, but it takes a great coach, a coach doing great things to do that. Another hallmark of coaching, this is the last thing that I listed in there, but how do you stop a specific player from beating you? Devising game plans. Jaden Daniels on Sunday was the perfect example. He had 5 rushing yards. The Steelers shut him down. He's a very good quarterback. Again, it's not just Tomlin. There's a lot that goes into it. You could make a case of special teams rising up and playing such an important part, but that's also setting a culture, and you're looking at that. It funnels to the top, both good and bad. And right now it's funneled to the top in a good way. And I think it's okay to give Mike Tomlin some credit for that stuff. So we'll see where it goes. Again, there's a lot of worthy competitors, Jonathan Salant and Jonathan Gannon. Maybe they're in the mix there, but Dan Campbell very much deserving. Dan Quinn as well. We'll see where that goes. All right, we're going to take a short break. The usual mid-roll thing. 30-second message from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, and on the other side, I want to talk a little Penguins and the Lars Eller trade.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
And welcome back to First 10. I'm your host, Jason Mackey. We're here the middle of the morning, Monday through Friday, about 10 minutes talking all things Pittsburgh sports. Thank you so much for finding us. So, okay, yesterday, out of nowhere, at least out of nowhere for me, Kyle Dubas said that they've been working on this for several months now. I don't know about that, but in any case, the Penguins traded Lars Eller to the Washington Capitals, his former team, for a 2025 fifth-round pick and a 2027 third-round pick. My question: what are we doing here? What is this? And I feel that way for a couple reasons. You're getting draft picks. That makes sense. Understand that. Player on an expiring deal. You're trying to get something out of it. I understand that. What sort of message are you sending? Is this the first of several? Because, there are a couple more moves you could make at this point. I would imagine somebody would be interested in taking Rickard Rakell. Somebody would probably be interested in taking Marcus Pettersson. But what are we doing here? Kyle Dubas said in comments to Matt Vensel and a few other local reporters covering the team that they want that playing time available for younger players. Okay, I sort of understand that. I've heard that a lot over the years with the Pirates. But what does that mean for the Penguins in winning and losing games? They're a better team with Lars Eller than they are without him. That's fairly obvious, right? I thought last year was very good. 15 goals, 31 points, played all 82. This year had 4 goals, 7 points in 17 games. It was a -4, but certainly not just him. Dubas also said this is important, that Eller did not ask for a trade. That was one of my first reactions. Like, did Lars Eller just get sick of this stuff and say, get me out of here? Not that I think that's his personality. It's not, but, guys on expiring deals, the Penguins are not playing great. The vibes are not excellent around the team, especially defensively. Did Eller say, hey, look, if you're going to do this, like if you have an opportunity, can you just do this sooner than later? And I'm sure he probably doesn't mind going back to Washington, place he won a Stanley Cup, whatever. But again, I'm taking a step back here and saying, what are we doing? What the Penguins look like they're caught in between on this stuff. And maybe I'm overreacting because it's just the beginning of several, and that's fine. If they would go in the direction of just blowing it up and rebuilding, I would have no issue with that. As much as, I've enjoyed watching and covering Sid, Gino, Letang, all that stuff. Like, that's the direction they should go. It should just be emotionless. Like, no. You're not going to win anymore with these guys. It's time to just blow it up and get a bunch of picks and start over and find great landing spots for those guys because they deserve it. Now, the probably the wrench in it if Sid says, no, I want to stay, which even I still don't think that's bad. Like, you can rebuild around Sid. They probably should have rebuilt around Sid, from the start of this thing. But the Penguins, I found this interesting, have just really, really started accumulating draft picks. 10 in 2025, 9 in 2026, and 10 in 2027. Now, what are they going to do with those? And 14 of those are in the first 3 rounds. By the way, thanks to Bob Grove and Matt Venzel for that stat. Excellent stuff. But are you going to trade those picks to make this team better? Or are you stockpiling them to use them? Trading away your third-line center who added a little bit of offense, who had Stanley Cup pedigree, could play defense, was a stand-up guy, exactly who you would want in your room, tells me you're going the second direction, right? You're stockpiling to use them and execute an extended rebuild. Trading Lars Eller does nothing to make you better right now. And I think some people, I think this was a fair expectation going into the season too. You expect the Penguins to at least try, compete for something. At 17 games, you're not waving the white flag. That's why I found the timing of this deal so odd. And I think we need more context surrounding it. If this was the first, again, of 4 or 5 trades blowing it up, I get it. I don't begrudge the Penguins or Dubas. That's probably the most coherent move you could possibly make. But if you're going to try to compete whatsoever in 2024, 2025, I don't see how it makes sense to trade Lars Eller for stuff that is way down the road, because you want to prioritize playing time for younger players who aren't unquestionably ready. It's not like they have somebody breaking the doors down in Wilkes-Barre. They have guys they're going to give that, they're going to give a chance to, and we'll see what happens. I'm not sure there's anybody that like, oh man, we got like a Paul Skeens level person they need to find a spot for. That's not the case. So anyway, that's my sermon on Lars Eller. That does it. Big game for the Penguins tonight, honestly, against the Red Wings at home. See how they bounce back from such a dreadful performance Monday, against the Dallas Stars. All right, make sure you like and subscribe. You can get all of this content and much more from our Post-Gazette team. We'll talk to you tomorrow on First 10. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.